but that's what you learn as a manager is I got to do it. It's the only way ultimately to get scale in the long term. And I see so many people in my circle struggling with that right now with
Welcome to the My Wife Quit Her Job podcast. Today, I'm lucky to have Bernie Thompson back on the show. And Bernie is someone who I've known for almost a decade now, and he's been on the show a bunch of times. He runs an eight-figure business called Pluggable, which is a company that sells docking stations, USB peripherals, and Bluetooth devices online all over the world. And basically, the guy is living my childhood dream of running an electronics business online. Now, what I love about Bernie is one, he's an engineer turned entrepreneur, and two, he's totally honest and forthcoming when it comes to business. So, today we're going to be talking about a couple things. We'll see where the conversation goes, but we're going to talk about what it's like selling on Amazon today at volume, and I want to focus also on how Bernie is using AI to streamline his business. And with that, welcome back, Bernie. How you doing?
I'm so glad to be on, and hey, I'm an avid listener. I love your topics. I love how you explain things. I mean, forget the evening news. I listen to your podcast, Steve, and get the real story about the world.
So, what's funny is I was just on your website, and your brand is as strong as ever. There's a decent amount of organic traffic to your site, and it's mentioned in AI a ton as well. So, for example, I just went up to ChatGPT and I said, "What is the best Thunderbolt 5 dock?" And your product came up as number three. So,
That's
my
awesome.
first question to you is the world is moving towards doing all product research on these LLMs like ChatGPT before buying. And in the future, you'll be able to buy directly in chat. I mean, I think that's coming really soon.
Yes.
So, how are you preparing for a future that looks like that? And what are you doing to gain more AI visibility?
Yeah, no, it's a super important question. We kind of went from, the store era, the Best Buy and Walmart era, where you had this limited shelf space and you basically had to convince, some gatekeepers, some basically buyers, for the retailer that your product was worthy or you didn't get any sales at all. And so we've then been through this period here with Amazon's somewhat infinite shelf. Although the reality is you can bury a body on page three and no one will ever find it. So it's not truly an infinite shelf if you're trying to sell stuff. But then yeah, with AI, it's somewhat frightening in a way. I mean, you see today, and you kind of expect this probably will continue, that there's you have a conversation about what you're looking for, and you get back one, maybe three product recommendations. So it really kind of amps up the pressure of how do I become one of those three. I mean, it's nice to be number three there on your search, Steve. I'd like to be number one though. Uh, yeah, and so I mean, I'll be honest. First of all, we don't know. We don't know how to influence the LLMs.
Okay.
But then within that don't know, we do know some things. I mean, so one of the things that's fortunate for us is we've always had this mindset that part of our mission is, well, actually our whole mission as a company, Pluggable, is around compatibility. So what is compatibility? Well, it is a bit about the products and how we design them, but a lot of it's about information. Does this work with that? How does this work together? And so we've always been a content marketing company that's put out a ton of content, tons of articles, tons of videos, tons of Q&As about how do our products work with other products, what are the quirks, what are the benefits. And so, our strategy, for winning at kind of AI SEO or LLM SEO is basically to put out more great content that
Nice.
connects things, that ties things together, that tells the whole story, that talks not just about the technology, but talks about use cases, that talks not just about use cases, but talks about the people, and exactly how they're using them. And I think we're partially succeeding at that, but our kind of ambition is to put out just a lot more content than we even are today.
What is your medium of choice? Is it written or video or both?
Yeah, it's got to be both.
Okay.
And you know, it, we actually just celebrated a huge milestone for the company. We crossed 50,000 YouTube subscribers. You're
Wow.
probably way
Congrats.
above that, Steve.
Congrats, Bernie. That's awesome. Yeah.
But for us, we're really excited about that. It's a good threshold, and so that's a nice, kind of baked in audience. As long as we're putting out content that is interesting and informative, and we can, kind of keep winning back that audience, that gives us a base of awareness and traffic. Um,
Mhm.
but obviously written is important too. I mean, kind of the cool thing about multimodal LLMs is it truly is both. I mean, if we say something in a video that used to be kind of buried content as far as search engines go, but for the LLMs, they're going to unearth that. They're going to break that video into tokens. Not only will they have the words, but they'll have the context of that I'm there plugging something in when I'm saying the words, and the LLM will actually extract that context. Yeah, it's really everything.
Nice. And so that explains it actually. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of AI optimization lately with my site. So one of the things is just citing facts about your sales and whatnot. And so we've sold over 1 million handkerchiefs. So I put that on the site and instantly it got picked up by AI. And now I'm known as like the highest volume handkerchief seller on the internet.
Yes,
And then recently, I also scanned all my product descriptions into a face database, and now my search is so much better, and
awesome.
that has improved sales dramatically. Anyway, my question for you is: I was on your site and I noticed all your links go to Amazon still for
Yep.
purchase, but you do still take sales on your own website. I was just curious, how come you're not using Buy with Prime so that you actually get their emails?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So first off, we do have the Amazon buy box often prominently, but we can control that SKU by SKU. So we actually have our line segmented by what target sales channel we expect that product to succeed in. So we actually have a whole bunch of products that we are not targeting Amazon on,
Oh, okay.
that are more business focused, that we sell through the IT channel. So when you go to those products on our site, we're capable of shifting, kind of like we have this complex buy box that can direct you to Amazon. It can direct you to B&H Photo. It can direct you to our distributors, or it can direct you to Shopify, and we can control that.
Ah, okay.
So
Okay. I would
but
expect
then
no less.
buy, right? Yeah, yeah, and it's a spreadsheet based configuration of it, and then we got some Python code that pushes metadata up to Shopify, and then some liquid markup on Shopify that then uses that metadata to do the rendering different
Just
ways.
curious, and I don't want to talk too much about this, but like, what is your criteria for what gets pushed to Shopify versus one of your partners like Amazon or B&H?
Yeah, so at launch, so generally at launch, we're shooting for Amazon success, although not always. Like today, if we're launching a USB cable, we're not shooting for Amazon success. There's 1,000 Chinese brands, doing a USB cable, and we're not going to beat them unless it's something really magically unique, certification, something like that. Um, but otherwise, if it's one of our kind of core products, like a higher ASP type product, we'll shoot for Amazon success and we'll send it to Amazon. But then after that, it's pretty much how the product behaves. If we're able to achieve some search rank for some significant keywords on Amazon and a significant BSR, we will then say that it's an Amazon focused product and make sure that we're monitoring and maintaining those ranks or building on them. Other products do not succeed on Amazon. They get swamped, by all the Chinese brand competition, and then we'll actually officially designate those as not Amazon focused. And that's often when the buy box will be shifted to one of our other partners, or just generally to distribution, because we want to be, I mean, Amazon has to be a special case because of their high market share, but really what we'd like to have is a mindset of, you know, uh, equally sending traffic to all of our partners. And so we generally, try to shift to that mindset once we let go of Amazon.
So, is this change the result of? Well, let me ask you this: what is the Amazon landscape like right now for large sellers? I read a report recently that said that it's less competitive on Amazon than ever before because a lot of sellers are dropping out. And you're obviously one of the survivors. Has it gotten easier for you then?
No. So what's happened is actually there's been a consolidation among the Chinese brands.
Okay.
So in our particular space, you've had a few Chinese brands break away from the larger pack. Basically, Anchor, Ugreen, Basis are the big three in the USB space: cables, chargers, adapters, and then to some degree docks. Although that's where we've maintained our leadership. Um, and So what's happened is you have less of a 5 years ago, a lot of the searches on Amazon looked like this rotating set of five character brands, just constantly changing, all five character, all from China. That has shifted in the last few years. It is now more consistently Anchor or Ugreen or somebody else. So I think I've actually been curious if that is something like that is not just the strength of those Chinese brands, but actually something where, once a champion has been crowned, whether there's a little bit less, I mean, as you know, investment in China is directed, but not in a, a purely top down or kind of singular kind of way. It's more that, at the federal level, there's the 5 year kind of goals, and then each of the local jurisdictions encourage companies in their area, and there's a little bit of like, I don't know whether it's explicit or implicit specialization. Areas tend to specialize in types of products, and then at the company level, they have to be very scrappy. They have to kind of get incentive, win incentives from the local government, but they also have to win in the market. And they've got this hyper competitive Chinese marketplace internally to the country that they've got to compete in. That's just brutal. And the survivors of that tend to be very strong companies, that can succeed globally. And so actually, one of the interesting things about Anchor is I don't think they've ever been very successful inside China. They were early enough that they succeeded outside China first, whereas a lot of these other Chinese brands, they actually succeeded inside China first, and then became tough and fast and great at what they do, and then they succeeded externally. So I don't know all the dynamics. It definitely feels like I'm looking in a window it's just something that I don't quite understand. But there's definitely been a winnowing of the Chinese brands in our space
Okay.
to the strong leaders.
Hey, just a quick heads up. Tickets for my annual e-commerce conference, the Seller Summit, are now on sale over at sellersummit.com. If you run an e-commerce business selling physical products, this event was built for you. Unlike typical events filled with broad advice and feel-good stories, the Seller Summit is all about real strategies you can actually use. Every speaker I invite is deep in the trenches, running their own store and dealing with the same challenges you face every single day. Now, we keep the event intentionally small, just 200 people, so it stays intimate, and you actually get time to connect, ask questions, and have meaningful conversations. I've sold out every single year for the past 9 years. And if your store is already doing over $250K or $1 million in revenue, we also run a private mastermind with other top sellers in the space. You can learn more and grab your ticket over at sellersummit.com. Now back to the show. An article says that there's less sellers doesn't mean like the competition's less. You're saying it's because of consolidation
Yeah.
among the brands. Okay. Um, I feel like the fees and whatnot keeps going up. How are you coping with that? And are you coping with that primarily with AI systems and making everything more streamlined? What have you done?
Yeah, I mean, the tariffs are a much larger potential effect than the Amazon fees on a percentage basis,
Okay.
at our levels of markup in electronics, which is, we probably electronics already had kind of compressed margins relative to some categories, and then that means that the tariffs have a disproportionate effect. Yeah, and also for us, we're at higher ASPs, so some of those things where somebody's fulfillment cost went up by 50 cents, that's the whole game on a $10 product, but on a $100 product, it's something that's it's a little bump.
Right.
So frankly, I don't know that I've felt the fee increases that much. The biggest fee increase for us actually occurred a few years ago it was a category specific thing where within electronics, the stuff we were mostly successful in moved from a 8% to 15% sales commission.
Hmm.
And that was brutal. That was a $1.5 million shift in, from our profits to Amazon. But that occurred, gosh, back in like 2018 or 2019. These
Right.
later fulfillment changes and some of the, a lot of the kind of punitive fees, the overstock, understock, long-term storage kind of stuff. They're guiding you to have a hyper efficient business
Yep.
that's well run, which is actually hard to do, but we've had to be there already. I mean, we have amazing systems. And so especially some of that stocking stuff, it really hasn't bothered us because we were already there in terms of our inventory levels and
I
stuff.
think that makes sense. I mean, electronics is so cutthroat and the margins are lower. You have to have those systems in place to begin with to even compete, is what it sounds
Yes, that's
like.
right.
Okay. Let's talk about the tariffs. We had a short conversation before I hit the record button. You have been largely free of tariffs thus far, whereas I just placed a large shipment and our tariffs are at 55%.
Right. Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's one of the things that is tough about the tariffs is and this includes the first set that were done in 2018. You have these wildly different rates depending on the category, which is called, HS code. Well, these HS codes, they were set up decades ago. I mean, I think most of our products, the like the parent category up of our electronics products are like nuclear materials or something.
All right.
Right? If you actually look up the chain of HS codes, it's something ridiculous. And that's these categorizations are not something that are like kind of clear and brilliant and match the modern world. And so then that contributes to one of these problems that if you have wildly different rates between different types of products, there's a lot of room for gamesmanship. But basically, in our case, what's happened here in 2025 is there was an exemption that was announced right after, like I think on April 11th. So on April 2nd, this big set of tariff announcements came out, and then there was a series of backing off of those. And one of those was basically people realized, hey, our iPhones are going to triple in cost if we actually do what we say we're going to do here. And so there was an exemption put in for phones and computers and a lot of
What do you call that
peripherals.
exemption, Bernie? It's got a name, right?
Yeah, it's got a name and it's a bunch of digits, something, something, something. I call it the Tim Cook exemption. I don't know if that's if that's the official name or not, but that's what I call it.
So it's for all electronics, it sounds like, right? Because you don't sell phones or anything like that.
No, but it's a weird line. It's not all electronics. So chargers and cables, it's not on those. And so, we're paying 55% if for the ones that we still have out of China on those. And unfortunately, the lower you go in ASP, the harder it is to get out of China. So a lot of those low ASP items, we don't sell a lot of them because we're already kind of facing such competitive pressure from the Chinese brands on low ASP. But we keep the SKUs because it's important for the kind of cohesiveness of our product line. Yeah, and so we're paying 55% tariffs. So in about half of the cases, we're discontinuing the SKUs. We may still be selling some inventory, but once the inventory's gone, we're done. And then about half the SKUs, we're just going to pay the 55%
Mhm.
tariff and continue. And then we have this larger set of SKUs, especially like the laptop docking stations, that right now are under this exemption. And so, we're essentially, um, paying zero, and we got out of China over the last 8 years.
Oh,
So the combination of being out of China and being under this exemption for the moment is giving us a 0% rate. But based on all the discussion, of course, we don't expect that to continue. And so we're kind of in this limbo.
so I think that exemption expires in like less than a month, right? Or something has to happen in less than a month, I believe. Uh,
So that exemption is similar to the pharmaceutical exemption, where they put the exemption in place and said, we're going to do this review of this category, and then we're going to come out with category specific tariffs and a strategy. So actually, we don't have a timeline on the
oh,
electronic stuff.
okay.
There's been some. we now all have to go to Truth Social
Yeah,
for
I
our
know.
for our business planning, and the rumors out of Truth Social is that yeah, it may they may come out with their electronics kind of strategy here in the coming month.
So how do you plan for that just internally? Uh,
It's maddening. You know, I have to place purchase orders today for goods that I'm going to receive 4 months from now in terms of importation, and that's like two tariff policy change cycles. Or
yeah, or more.
right. Um, and it's scary. I mean, my business, Steve, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm placing millions of dollars of purchase orders a month,
yeah.
and it makes a big difference to me whether that tariff rate is 0 or 25 or 50%. And Yeah, it's fascinating. I think that all businesses, one of the kind of magic things that's happened here during this time for the US consumer is all of the confusion and lack of certainty has actually caused businesses to not raise prices unless they're actually paying the
That is
tariffs.
what Ritu told me last week. I was shocked by that. So
Yeah,
you're not seeing price increases.
in electronics as a category, but there are a lot of exemptions, but as a category, prices actually went down in
Huh.
Q2.
Okay.
Small amount, but it went down. So yeah, and it's not that there's lots of products in the category that have been hit by tariffs. I mean, some of that's going to be tariff avoidance, which we could talk about, which is so frustrating. But a lot of it is the exemptions, and then a lot of it is, there's nobody can. Everyone's a bit frozen on everything, including price changes, because of the uncertainty of where the tariff rates will land and when they'll get there.
I know for our business, like the tariffs have been 55%. And so we've been just kind of trickling up the prices here and we have a lot of SKUs. So it's easy to kind of hide it by just increasing a product here and there. Uh, you're right, though. Prices across the board don't seem to have hit. Like I know inflation just kind of ticked up recently. Do you anticipate all these prices shooting up in the holidays as a result?
I do,
Yeah.
but I've been wrong before.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it really feels like there's that the uncertainty has been holding back the flood, and then also a little bit of the, you know, uh, I don't know what the pressure, right? The visibility, like especially at the large company level. If you're a Walmart or an Apple or an Amazon, I mean, you're literally getting media and political pressure and attention on your pricing. So yeah, so I think what's happened basically is that people are probably mostly pricing in the tariffs they're already paying,
Mhm.
and I think so. So the amount of tariffs, I was trying to get the numbers before the call. So one way to look at it is how much tariff revenue is the government collecting, and so in Q2, the U.S. government raised $64 billion of tariff revenue, which is up from 17 billion last year at the same time. So basically, like a fourfold increase or so.
Yeah.
Um, and so, those prices will go up by that much for sure. And it's just a matter of kind of these delays. And and then of course this next set that's being discussed, because it affects not just China but our friends and allies and the whole world. I
Yeah.
mean, collectively, it's a much larger tax increase on imports. So yeah, these things will come through with price increases, and because it's been delayed, I kind of expect it to come in a uncomfortable kind of breaking of the dam where prices go up fast at some point.
You mentioned your smaller SKUs that you have to pay 55% towards. You've you're basically just selling those because they're complements or maybe upsells to what you already sell, and others you've just delisted on Amazon, right? Um,
Yes.
do you feel like it's leveled the playing field though in a way, or are you just not going to ever be able to compete against the Chinese manufacturers for those types of products?
Yeah, so the problem with tariffs as your one mechanism of competition is they can be avoided. And one big mechanism of avoidance, has been closed, which is the de minimis,
Yeah.
importation of goods, which was used a lot for, kind of order by order shipments, parcels with the China Post and stuff. But it was also used a different way. It was used by a significant number of Chinese companies and also some U.S. and Western companies to import in bulk into Canada and Mexico and then come in small under $800 batches into the US. So both of those have been closed, which is great. I mean that's just a totally a positive thing
Yeah.
to close those loopholes. But the trouble is that this is basically kind of like a volunteer tax tariffs. When you have your goods go and clear, you submit some paperwork, and on that paperwork you say how much the goods are worth. So if you're a U.S. company and a U.S. person, and the government has the right to audit those going way back in time. You and I actually, unfortunately, I see a lot of friends right now talking. I watch the discussions online, and they're using kind of gray strategies to get their declared cost of goods down and things like that. And unfortunately, a set of those people are going to get into trouble where they're going to, at some point in a year or two, get an audit. They're going to go back all the years, and they're going to get a bill that's going to destroy their business. Um, but if you're a Chinese company or any actually foreign company, you have very little at stake there. You're not going to get thrown in jail. You can get a bill, but you can also just disappear as a company and come back in a new form.
Mm,
You may get a particular shipment held and lost. So that's definitely at risk for anybody, regardless of where they are. But that's just one shipment or one set of shipments. So basically, what the aggregate pattern that we clearly see, even based on the 2018 tariffs, is that overseas companies are very aggressive about using strategies to avoid tariffs.
mm,
Misdeclaring HS code, misdeclaring value of goods. There's some legal ways. I mean, as you know, Steve, if you're a company in China, you can legally declare a lower value of goods
yeah.
than a US company importing the same good because we have to declare exactly what we pay to the other supplier, to the
Right.
supplier. But the supplier themselves, they just have to declare all of their input costs to the physical goods. And there's a lot of things that you can take off of that legally, including your own profit. You can just profit shift. And so already from a legal perspective, it's a lower. And then once you get to big tariff numbers like 55%, if you can just pay 20% less, 30% less, that's the whole ball game. In electronics, electronics is a single digit net margin industry. So that's the whole ball game.
I would imagine that the larger guys have to comply, right? Like the anchors and the U greens.
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think it comes down to company culture. Like I think those are two great examples. And I don't want to talk too specifically about
Sure.
them, but I think I'll just talk positively about Anchor. I mean, Anchor has not always been perfect. Like for example, they got hit with $1 million
Yeah.
VAT bill in the UK a few years ago because they grew for years in the UK with a 20% advantage because they weren't paying VAT, but then it caught up to them all at once because they're a big global reachable identifiable company. But generally Anchor is a pretty good company in terms of ethics, but a lot don't assume anything about the rest of the brands. I mean, and
Okay.
sometimes you can just see it. I mean, just look at the pricing on the same product.
Yeah.
That's not manufacturing magic, that's paperwork magic.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Um, I know you've been doing a lot with AI, and you're a coder or an engineer. What have been your most impactful automations or agents or what? Like, I'm just curious how you're using it.
Yeah, I think the most impactful thing, and I think I got to hear you speak at your conference, Steve, and I was just so impressed with all the automation that you've done for your business. But so it's probably similar to you that the most impactful automation is the creation of code. That if I want a little script to automate this or that, it is easily 5 times faster than it was in the past, maybe 10 times faster. I can sit down in a AI-centric code editor like Cursor, have a framework for my scripts, how they run, like run on a schedule on a particular server, and I have a whole bunch of different tasks. And I can add a task that goes and connects with an API and grabs the data and shoves it into my database. That can be done in 30 minutes, like 5 minutes to the first code and then 25 minutes to, fix the problem or two, in that generated code. And suddenly I've connected to an API and I've got the data in my database and I'm ready to go to the next step. Something like that would have easily taken me, I don't know, like 4 or 8 hours before, because I personally would have had to go understand that API
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kind of figure a bunch of stuff out. And now that's given to me as boilerplate code, by the LLM. So that's probably the number one area for me, and kind of to your question. But I think for the business, it's actually strategy. It's actually all of my executive team brainstorming back and forth with AI using, the reasoning models, the more advanced ones. I have my whole team on the OpenAI paid plan. So we're able to have company only company visible GPTs that kind of are matched one-to-one with roles inside the company, and we load them up with all of our SOPs and documents and knowledge about how we do that. And now any of our team members can ask questions kind of at the SOP level or at the strategy level about how do I fix this? How do I do this? Um, and yeah, so it's kind of both sides. Somebody once told me, that the text generation of LLMs feels like, the right brain creative side of AI, but what's the left brain logical side of AI? Because the creative side is a little unreliable, like it
Yeah.
hallucinates and it does, sometimes you can't trust it. Well, it's code generation. That is rendering this logical thing that once it's working will execute again and again, no hallucination, because it's now been it's created code. And so I love thinking about that interplay between the creative and the logical, and how do you, harness AI to do both things for your business.
So for the people listening, most of them aren't technical, and I've actually been struggling with this with my son. Like he wants to create this app, uh, but he's not really a coder. Is most of the employees at your company who do this, are they coders or even non-coders using AI to create tools in your company?
Um, yeah, a lot of them are people who have always wanted to learn coding, but maybe didn't get a degree, didn't they didn't get there kind of as or at least they were really dabblers before. And then also executives who have coded in the past, who do know about coding, but they haven't been doing it day to day, and so they're dabblers in a different way. They know how to, they actually know quite a bit, but unless in the old world previous to LLMs, if you weren't coding every day, you'd forget everything. You'd
Yeah,
forget all the
exactly.
syntax. You'd forget all the interfaces. So that's me. That's me. I
Yeah.
feel like it's such an unlock for my productivity. But on the side of the of the dabblers, it's you just need to be careful about the framework. Like the two biggies for us are SQL and AppScript. We're a Google Workspace shop, so AppScript is a powerful way to automate anything related to Gmail and spreadsheets. And so and they kind of almost by design are these little standalone scripts that run in one of the Google apps. So that's a really great area for a non-programmer, to go ask the LLM to go automate something for them. And then when they kind of deploy it, just paste the script in. It's if something goes wrong, the effects of that are limited, and it just works. And the same with SQL. I have my finance team is taking that raw data that I might have pulled out of an API, and then they take it from there, and they'll roll that data up with a series of joins, and you'll get that into an inventory, a combined inventory sheet or a combined run rate sheet. We use BigQuery to Google Sheets. There's a feature called Connected Sheets that lets us pull data from databases into spreadsheets. We use that all the time. Marketing team, same kind of stuff. Uh, Pulling data, transforming data, and so SQL is this. Yeah, I guess this is one of the tricks of LLM programming is really constraining it. Giving it a strong set of limitations in how and what it can do, then it'll be much more likely to give you what you want. And I love LLMs generating SQL because it's a really good example of that.
So for the people listening, app script sounds like a great way to just get started. What are some scripts that your employees have been using just with their Google tools that has saved a lot?
Yeah. Let's see. So, some of it is connecting with BigQuery and then saying, okay, we want to transform this data and then put it in a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
Um, some of it is like an API, like in the Amazon world, there's this long API that's been around forever called Keepa, and it gives you this history of what's happened with a product statistically on Amazon based on them scraping the page. So you can literally call Keepa from the from AppScript and then just fill in the rows, with the
Mhm.
results from that API call. And that's probably a good meta example. Mostly I'm going from API into database, but it's very
Mhm.
easy with AppScript to go from API into spreadsheet.
It's interesting. I go the opposite direction. Most of it is grabbing stuff from my database and then formatting it in a way for my wife and the rest of the people. So I'm like doing the opposite, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the only reason I didn't emphasize that is because Connected Sheets does that pretty well. With Connected Sheets, if you're on the higher Google plan,
uh,
the corporate plan, you get that feature, and then you can just give a SQL query, and it'll do the query from the database, transform it, and put it into your spreadsheet. And so we don't need to use AppScript for that. We can use SQL.
nice. I hope we didn't go over the listeners' heads. See, what's funny about all this is like I'm actually encouraging people in my class to try coding, and so one thing that I've been working with my son on, not quite yet, but there's this tool called Replit. I don't
Yep.
know if you've used it before, but it's like an easy way for you to just have AI built in, and you can deploy a full blown app with technically not even knowing how to code. And then there's like tools like Lovable, which are really good at creating like front ends for stuff. And I really think that this is where the world's going. And you really don't need to know how to code. You just need to be able to explain things very well, I think, on
Yeah,
paper.
that's right.
Communication, it's just a test of communication, really.
Yep.
Uh,
And what's communication? It's conceptual clarity and having the words. So, a lot of what we need to do to be successful with LLMs is actually to be widely read ourselves so that we know what's possible, we know the concepts, and we know what words to use, whether we're talking to a human being or talking to an LLM to say, hey, I want this.
no, I actually agree with you. I think that if you're a good boss, you're probably going to be a good app creator because you can't just go
Yep.
to an employee and say, hey, do this, right? You need, like, one of my pet peeves when I used to work at my job as an engineer, someone would come to me and say, it's broken, right? And I'd be like, well, what's broken? And it's like, well, I'm getting this blank screen. I'm like, well, what did you do? You know what I'm saying? Like, you need a lot of detail in order to help. And that's the same skills that you would need to create some sort of app. You need to get very detailed on exactly what you want. So it's really not really coding anymore. It's just an exercise in communication, is the way I see it.
I love that. And first of all, I love that you said that when you used to work, because now you're not working.
Day job is what I meant. I still work, just for the record. Yeah.
But the other thing I loved about what you said there is managing. I really do think that making good use of LLMs today and then expanding on that, as we're heading here a year, two from now, using all of these, semi-free agentic employees that you have at your beck and call, it's a management problem. And and management, you described really well kind of the challenge of delegation and delegating, or one of the challenges of delegation, which is describing what you want effectively. The other, there's a bunch of other aspects that are hard about delegation. One of those that's really hard is that when you delegate to somebody, they're not going to do it the same way you would. And they're probably not going to do it to your quality standards, at least not initially. And all of us who've managed people, managing is hard. We started out being very frustrated by that process. I could hand off this task, but it's going to take them twice as long, and they're going to do a terrible job,
Yeah.
right? But that's what you learn as a manager is I got to do it. It's the only way ultimately to get scale in the long term. And I see so many people in my circle struggling with that right now with LLMs, where they're going, if I ask an LLM to do this, it's going to give me back, some slop. It's not going to be as good as what I do. It's not going to be as crafted as what I do. I'm expert at this. Why would I ask something that isn't going to do as good a job as me to go do this? Well, it's the same reason why in an organization you got to delegate because it's the only way to get scale. It's the only way to multiply your value. And so I think basically and then sorry to expand on that a little bit more, in organizations, you always have a certain set of people who are interested in management and then a certain set of people who are not. And the people who are not, who want to remain individual contributors, they are experts, they are proud of their work, they are proud of their craft, and the scary thing is that this LLM, this AI era, is not well aligned with that.
Yeah,
And I'm kind of worried for those people, those friends.
I agree. The other thing I wanted to kind of add to that is I used to think that I was doing coding well with the LLMs, but then I talked to one of my buddies in industry who I just had lunch with, and they have this like 10-page SOP that they feed in so that the code comes out exactly how they want. And so, really, what I'm trying to say here is if you're not getting what you want out of the LLM, chances are the problem is you and not the LLM itself, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those coding, there's kind of two styles of vibe coding right now. One is where you're just cutting and pasting back and forth with with your LLM of choice, but the other is where you're using one of these AI tools. Like I've been using Cursor, Replic's another one. Amazon just launched theirs out of AWS last week at Kiro.
Mhm.
Um, there was just $1 billion deal that happened and fell apart
Yeah.
between OpenAI and a company called Windsurf, which does a similar type of product. And what these products do is they are actually several of them are branches of Visual Studio Code, Microsoft's kind of ubiquitous development environment for software developers. And they embed AI in a way where I was talking earlier about the importance of constraining your problem, putting guardrails around the LLM. They do it systematically, like you're describing, Steve. Cursor calls it cursor rules.
Mhm.
Yeah, so for this big project that I've been doing in Cursor the last few months, I have, I don't know, maybe like 1,000 lines of readable English statements of we're doing this in Google Cloud. We're using BigQuery as our database. Whenever we, process an item, we log a metric to Google Cloud Metrics. Whenever we have to have something that we can't do synchronously, to use a term you would know, but we can't do right away. We use a Google Pub Sub to queue up a message and then pass that to the other system. So basically, it's an architectural description of how to do this piece of software, and if and it just is it's groundbreaking because it's simple, but it's groundbreaking because if you don't do that, the LLM over time will do all kinds of different choices. It's not really hallucination, it's often working code. But one time it'll decide to use this database, the next time it'll decide to use a different database, and you end up with a disaster of an application. Kind of that architectural step and describing and constraining what the LLM does is a really key part as soon as you're project is bigger than a single script, and you'll be maintaining it over more time, and it's not just a one-shot automation.
Which is just like having an employee, really, right? Unless you give guidelines, the employee's just going to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Yep.
And so, uh, and this is really just for the listeners out there. Like, if you're having problems getting ChatGPT or whatever to do what you want, it's probably your problem that you're not explaining it well enough. And I've seen enough of like my buddies who are, working now and what they're working with to make me realize that I'm not doing a good job of it either. So blame yourself first is I guess the moral of the story here.
Isn't that always the rule?
And it's just a question. I think I was thinking about this the other day, how LLMs are replacing jobs and whatnot. But I think it's going to shift now towards, as you mentioned earlier, people who can communicate ideas and organize architectures better. That's where the next level of jobs are going to be, I think.
Yep. And everyone will be a manager. Everyone will have a team reporting to them, and many times that team is going to be a set of AI or AI agents, and it's a very different world. It's not. This is not easy. Humans are remarkably flexible. We're remarkably adaptive. There will be plenty of work to do moving forward, but the degree to which this work looks so different is jarring.
We'll see how it goes. So my kids are applying to college right now, or one of my kids is applying, and we're trying to figure out what like the most future proof major is going to be because I feel like it's not CS or engineering anymore. It's going to be more of the soft skills, or I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm a little scared.
Yeah, no, it is scary, especially for I also have kids in college. Yeah, in one hand, I think the broad-based education so that you have a lot of concepts in your head and you have a lot of the words for those concepts. And that's a skill that actually traditionally a four-year college degree was really focused on that. Actually going back in time, maybe a bit more focus on that. Maybe that'll come back around, that sort of broad-based education. But yeah, in terms of specific skill areas, on one hand, if you go really deep in certain areas, the rewards are huge. Like, I mean, this crazy competition right now for hardcore AI, foundational AI developers, I mean, hundreds of millions of
I
dollars are
know
getting
it's
thrown
crazy.
around at individuals.
Yeah,
Insane. And yet I know a bunch of really great programmers who've been out of work.
yeah.
So how, as we think about our kids, how do we help our kids navigate this divergence where some things and some skills get super valued and then so many other ones get devalued? It's part of the disruption, which is so, scary. But I think we need, we need to navigate it. And I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a bad job, but I feel this urgency to help the people around me navigate this because it's not easy.
I think it's all going to come down to relationships in the end, people skills, and then everyone's going to be able to create apps. And hopefully, it'll just be based on your creativity, your relationships, and your ability to organize something and make something come together. Bernie, thank you so much for coming on back on the show. I'm always thrilled to see you at Seller Summit. We just announced Seller Summit next year. Would love for you to be a part of that as well. But once again, thanks a lot for coming on the show.